Due to the recent surge of witchcraft nowadays, we typically see people on TikTok use things such as stones or cauldrons, and if you're even lucky, maybe like runes or something like that. But we don't typically see them talk about wands. And I feel like when I was looking for different videos to find and make wands on, I couldn't really find too many that were very informative and ones that really interest me that much. So in response to that, I'm going to make my own video, and maybe more in the future, about obscure things in witchcraft and stuff like that, because the wand is actually really interesting if you think about it, because it is a very old tool that is very, like I said, underappreciated and sometimes even looked over nowadays. So the modern English word for wand comes from the Middle English won and the Old Norse this. It typically means a stick or a rod in witchcraft, and wands throughout history have come through many shapes and sizes. But today we're specifically going to talk about the wind variety. More specifically, this kind. This one is actually my personal wand, and it's actually made from apple wood. And I chose apple because of the properties of the wood itself spiritually, and because I simply like apples. They're my favorite fruit, actually. But yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Now, in fiction and in films, you often see wizards and warlocks and the like often carrying staves or wands to project and display their power and whatnot. And in real witchcraft, we do use it to direct energy, but we use it to direct energy from us through the wood of the wand and towards the object we're pointing at. Now, I may hear you asking, well, if the power comes from us, why don't we even use wands? Why can't I just use these babies here? Now to that I say, isn't it, fool boy? But in all seriousness, the real reason why we use them is because I just said it. We use it to direct energy. And the reason why is actually pretty interesting. So our ancient ancestors would observe nature very closely to see the season as well as when food was available. And as they did so, they saw fruit and nut-bearing trees sprout buds and flowers in spring and early summer, and throughout that season until fall, these small flowers and buds would seemingly turn into bountiful harvests of fruit and nuts. And so they themselves believed if they were to wield that power of the branch itself from that tree, that they themselves could harness this energy from within to produce manifestations or bring things into fruition. Now, you don't specifically have to just stick with nut and fruit-bearing trees. There are many trees you can choose from, but it's just that the nut and fruit varieties seem to be more successful. But if you don't have any in your area, you can always use these examples I'm going to give you right now. So pine is actually a very good wood to make a wand out of. It is great for healing, it's good for exorcism as well as prosperity. The only caveat is that when you dry the wood, it becomes a little sticky because of the resin, so do be mindful. Another great one is willow, but it's a very soft wood, and it's typically hard to get dry because it's so with water. It's very soft, and it's just not too useful really much for much of anything. But if you were to somehow dry it and go through the process of carving it into a beautiful wand, which I have twice, you can definitely make into a great wand for lunar rites or for rites of intuition or psychic workings. Walnut is also a very great wise wood for those seeking knowledge. It is also great for fertility as well, and it is said to connect to underworld or chthonic deities. Oak wood is very great as well. It's actually one of the most powerful woods they consider as well, and it can be used in rites of solar or of fire as well. Solar and fire rites. Yeah, and it can also be used to connect to sky or solar deities as well. It is great for strength, power, as well as really anything. Oak's just kind of all-around good guy to be around with. Another great wood is the yew wood, and actually I have some over here too. Not fully carved, but we'll talk about that in a second. But yew can be great for workings with the dead as well as underworld magic as well, or working with ghosts or spirits. It can also be used to conjure them as well, and it's great for transformation or renewal. But the main reason why I haven't really carved it much, and the reason why yew shouldn't really either, is because the wood of the yew tree is actually very toxic. The needles Every part of the plant is very toxic except for the red berry leaf, but don't find out. Look it up first. But they're all very toxic, and it is a kind of heart poison where if you were to eat it or inhale its sawdust, it will affect your heart rate and it can make your heart stop. So do not try this. Please don't. Now, collecting the wood itself is pretty dang easy. So, to collect the wood, all you need is 3 items essentially. You will need some coins, because when you take the wood, you want to leave an offering of some sort, you know. I say about 3 pennies or a quarter or two would be quite lovely. You could really throw any amount of change you want, you know, just make it so where you feel right to give it. Some water as well, because when you cut the tree, you know, if you're taking a branch, you want to pour some water at the base, or if you cut down the entire tree, pour near the base, say thank you for giving me what you've given. And lastly, you will need a nice sharp axe or some tool. But if you don't got an axe or a hatchet, then you could always find yourself a good saw tree. Saw trees are typically ripe around this year, and they have plenty of fruit at the bottom at the base that look like saws. So pick one as you please, and don't forget to say thank you to the tree as well. Thank you. So all you need for this step for making the wand is your wood of choice after you've sawn it off or hacked it off with the tool you used, and left an offering for the tree. And then you would need yourself a good set of whittling tools. You can always just use a regular knife, but I use whittling tools because you know, they're helpful. You know, they're meant for this. And essentially, you just want to whittle it down. You know, you want to carve it and all, and give it all the bits and pieces you don't like, and carve it to really how you please. There's many designs you can do out there. I'm just gonna do a simple smooth top and a nice round handle. You can put a crystal at the bottom if you wanted to, like drill a hole, put crystals and herbs in there, see a little wax. You can put a crystal on top even if you wanted to, glue it on. But really, the choices are up to you, and I'm just gonna simply show you how to do just a classic wand, as you can see. So let's get into it, shall we? So now that you've gotten your wood carved, like I said, you can make it to a nice, lovely wand, as you can see right here. It's nothing too fancy, as I mentioned. You just really carve it and all. I still gotta sand it down here, and I gotta smooth the bottom here a bit. And then you could always use sandpaper. You could paint some designs if you wanted to. It's not fully finished, but you'll want to sand it first, and then you'll want to carve it a bit more if you wanted to, trim it out, and smooth it out. Really, it's great like that. But while you're busy making one wand, I had the time to make 3 more. This one here is blackthorn. Blackthorn is a very great wood to make a wand out of, you know, as I could find myself. It's quite lovely. I don't think it's quite grown much in America, so you might have to import it, which is what I did. This one here is pear. Pear's a lovely one as well. It's very cute. I love it. It's very nice, kind of grayish, you know. And then this one is hawthorn. Hawthorn's very lovely too. This is probably my favorite one, honestly, but it's awesome. But yeah, you know, since you're a little bit of a slowpoke, we'll go back to the one. Let's stick with this one today, okay? And with this final step, at this point the wand itself is pretty much done once after you sand it down. I like using 2 types of sandpaper. I use a 120 medium grit right here, and then I like to finish it off with a 220 very fine grit. I get it to where, you know, I can smooth it out, and when I'm done smoothing it, I can finally make it nice and coarse and get that grain out real beautifully. Right there. And at this point, after you sand it down, the wand is essentially done. You don't have to do anything further if you want to. You can leave it like this, or if you want to, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some varnish on it. And as some people may use clear coat or wood stain, I use boiled linseed, and that's great for giving it a nice golden tint. And I love the scent of it as well. It's beautiful, and it gives it a little bit of a nice luster almost. It reminds me of like antique wands or wooden products, really. But you know, like I said though, if you want to leave it as it is, you definitely can. You can always just leave it like this and paint on some symbols or wood burn them if you fancy. But in this step, I'm going to show you how to varnish it, and yeah, so See you there.
The last step is to gather your linseed oil and then your product. Your one there. That's the kind of linseed oil I use. You could get really any kind, but I found I didn't really see any hardware stores that did sell linseed oil, so really I just used Amazon. I could leave a link to the description down below to where you can find it. But yeah, you'll get a few dabs of this in there. You don't want too much, just maybe 2 dabs right there. You get your wand. Oops, sorry, it's shaking the camera. You get your wand and just rub it about like that. Rub it down. Nice and evenly, really. Oh, it's a good scent, really it is. And yeah, rub it down. I recommend using cloth, not paper towel, but if you only got paper towel, you gotta do what you gotta do. And this is the first coat. You wanna do about 2 other coats of that. Oop. But yeah. Just do this about 2 more times, and I'll show you the final result.
And with that, you have your final product here, which is a handcrafted wand made by you. And you can now have the option to charge or bless it even. You can use an Asperg almost, like with rosemary and rue, and you can sprinkle water on it as you want, you know, going from the bottom to the top to charge it. You can use dragon's blood resin or incense. You can even use frankincense and myrrh if you wanted to, or you could even do it by a tea light or a candle, or you can even do a crystal upon it. You could get like a really charged piece of clear quartz and kind of stroke it upwards to bless it or charge it even like that, you know. But essentially your wand is finished, and I really hoped you enjoyed this video and process. I may be making more videos in the future, so if you have any other video suggestions or any other questions, by all means comment down below. I'm more than happy to help, and I'll see you next time. Blessed be.